This week on Moulz and Mel at the Movies, we discuss the 1995 film The Show, directed by Brian Robbins and starring Slick Rick, the Wu-Tang Clan, Dr. Dre, Notorious B.I.G., and many more. A documentary about the culture of hip-hop through interviews with some of hip-hop's biggest names. The filmmakers attempt to find out why this genre has become so popular. This week on Moulz and Mel at the Movies, let's go see The Show. Welcome to Moulz and Mel at the Movies. Welcome back, folks.
This thing actually did come out in the movies, right? That's what I read. Now, you can't believe everything you read on the internet, obviously, but
yes,
I heard this
it was actually released in theaters on August 25th, 1995, which means it came out 10 days after the soundtrack was released.
Okay. On the topic, I feel like they should release more concert films into theaters. I think it'd be a nice communal experience.
Agreed. I was able to see in the theaters, I was able to see Dave Chappelle's Block Party, which was really great to see in a theater with an audience. And it was interesting seeing it at different theaters because I saw it opening day at the AMC theater in Times Square.
Oh, AMC! Hey, speaking of which, the stock is back up,
bro.
You're
back up? You're back
I'm back up.
Stimmy pushed you back up?
I mean, I don't know what pushed it back up. Oh, no, I do know. I looked into it. They reopened some theaters, I think, in LA and New York.
Yeah, everything's like 25% capacity. Right
we back.
That means I think the stock's at 25% capacity, but this is not financial advice. Anyway,
it's not finance. Yeah, well, that's what they say. It's not financial. This is also not financial rankings. This is Moulz and Mel with the movie.
So yeah, going to see it in Times Square opening day with an audience that clearly appreciates the artists of Dave Chappelle's Block Party versus seeing it on Long Island in the middle of the week with an audience that clearly does not know what the fuck is going on other than Dave Chappelle from the Chappelle Show. Was an interesting juxtaposition. I saw U2 in 3D when the 3D craze was going on in like 08 or 09 in theaters, and I'm not a U2 fan, and I thought it was like a 10. Like, the experience was just incredible. The 3D was great. Wow. It was awesome. So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the concert film. I didn't see it in the theaters, but I watched Fade to Black, the Jay-Z. Even though I'm not the biggest Black Album fan, I love that documentary, Fade to Black, because it's about the making of the Black Album and Jay-Z's final concert.
Right.
Same with Chappelle Block Party. It was an actual event that's being covered by the documentary. And these documentaries seem to have a singular focus. This is a documentary that almost operates the same way the soundtrack operates, as a almost compilation of various artists, without necessarily like a strong through line, but we'll get into that. First, let's discuss the rating system, get that out of the way real quick so we can go ahead and give our ratings and then get into our thoughts.
Oh, yeah, the daggone rating system. Okay, well, as adopted from Rap Rankings proper, Moulz and Mel at the Movies has a rating system, and it goes like this. Each film is rated on a scale of 1 to 10. These numbers do not reflect the quality of a film, as that is indeterminable. Instead, each number reflects a level of enjoyment. In short, here's what each number means. 10 means this is a perfect film to me, one of my favorite films of all time. 9 means I love it. 8 means I like it a lot. 7 means I like it. 6 means it's alright. I don't dislike it, but I can't say that I like it. 5 means I feel practically nothing about this. 4 means it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but I dislike it. 3 means, heard? See, listen, that's that rab. That's that rab slipping out. The worst film I've ever watched, but I dislike it. 3 means I dislike it. 2 means I hate it. 1 means I absolutely can't stand it. One of the worst things I've ever seen. Side note, you can add a plus or a minus to that. It has no mathematical or statistical value. It just means one of two things. One, being a strong or light version of that number. For example, 5 plus, like strong 5. 9 minus, light 9. 2, it means like, it's the rating could go up or down in the future because the ratings aren't static. So that 5 plus could one day be a 6, maybe even a 7. That 6 minus could drop to a 5. It's how it goes. So yeah, that's it. That's the rating system. So
all right. Well, we'll just get it out of the way right now. I give this film a 7 minus.
Hanging on there. It's hanging on with that 7 minus. Well, I'll give it a flat 7.
Okay.
So we both like it.
Yeah, I like it. Or this is what I'll say. I actually kind of had a hard time getting through this film and trying to stay engaged throughout it because the film lacks structure. It's like a bunch of concert footage and behind the scenes footage and interviews just almost like thrown on a randomizer.
It lacks a center thread.
Right. I was saying like
everything.
the through line that goes. So the film opens up with kind of discussing the phenomenon of hip hop. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, I get wizened up early on in this film that the show is not like literal. This isn't a concert film about a actual show that's going on.
Although there is a show, I believe, called The Show that they're all on the bill for.
Right. So the film itself, though, like, for example, we see Wu-Tang Clan performing out in Japan, but we see Puffy and Biggie on stage, and they're not in Japan.
Right. We see, the Dog Pound and Warren G. And
I get the sense that these are separate shows that we're seeing.
Some of the shows are separate. Some, like, it's their set as a part of the show. Because, like, you notice they introduce, acts after them.
Yes.
Like, I forgot who. I think Wu-Tang was like, Run DMC's coming up next or something,
And that was what was going on in Japan.
Yeah, I think so. Well, you're right. No, that was definitely a separate show, the Japan show. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
So the Japan show was definitely just Wu-Tang. And the show was Biggie, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the Dog Pound.
It's if it sounds, disjointed, it's because it is, folks. I mean, this documentary is not telling a singular story. It's, as you described off air, it feels like, there isn't much to say about this film as a documentary because I
have one major critique of it.
Okay.
Was that they almost, the way they introduce like the relationship between Russell Simmons and Slick Rick, and then like Russell's talking about like, fuck him, I don't want to visit him in this Rikers, like
it feels like there's going to be a real story happening.
Yeah, and I feel like you had a through line right there. Slick Rick, the ruler, as they show this archival footage of him shitting on all the peons like he used to do, has now been reduced to a number. And he is in the system, and he's talking about, this makes me feel less materialistic, about like this kind of shit doesn't matter. And when I get out, he's talking about what he wants to do when he gets out. And I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff they could have gotten into.
Well, yeah, you think maybe it's going to really be a deconstruction of the hip hop persona.
Right.
Or something like that.
And not just that, but like almost a look like behind, like, have we seen a documentary about a rapper who's been locked up and we actually get to see them behind bars during a conjugal visit? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It was compelling. I thought that, they cut to it once in the middle of the movie and then it ends the movie. But I feel like if it had been threaded through this entire thing, it would have given everything more weight, But at the same time, I also feel like And this goes to show you why I gave this a 7 minus, and why, despite the fact that this, at times, I'm engaging and disengaging, like it's hit or miss for me in terms of the structure of everything. If you're not going to do that, you're not going to do this like framing device of Slick Rick behind bars, then make an entire movie about Wu-Tang in Japan and fuck all that other shit.
I mean, here's the thing. Spoiler, that is my favorite segment, the Wu-Tang in Japan thing. But I mean, they do actually accomplish like the whole, where they could have went with it as far as deconstructing. I mean, you get comments from Dr. Dre, like it's just entertainment. Snoop and the Dog Pound talking about what they do in real life, and forgot who it was. I think it might have been Slick Rick that was talking about like, yeah, in jail, it was like you can't just be like acting all tough all the time. Like he was like, you get around like my dukes, like you're not finna be like, yeah, this, that, and the third. Like, just talking about the difference between entertainment and their lives and how they intertwine. Okay.
I remember what you were going to try to bring up. What I was saying to you off air.
Well, no, I was getting there too. What you were saying to me off air is it's kind of like it feels like you're watching a bunch of like 90s hip hop YouTube videos, like interviews and performances, like just strung one after the other, and not exactly a documentary. It just feels like a YouTube playlist assembled into an hour and a half.
Yeah. And, in that end, I almost wish that at least it was more episodic so that they kept everyone's stuff within their own little segment.
Right. Because, I mean, it is episodic until they start bringing back the earlier episodes. It's not so tightly broken up into like, we'll move on from like the Dog Pound to like this group, but then it's like we're still revisiting the Dog Pound.
So
and it's like,
with that being said, my notes, I wrote more notes than I ever did for a film so far, and yet none of the notes are very substantial. They're all just like,
I'm gonna be real with you, man. Honestly, all of the notes are just like quotes and funny moments, because I think that's why. Well, I know that's why this thing gets a 7 for me, because it doesn't get a 7 as a documentary. It's not a compelling documentary.
I 100% agree with you. I think even though there's a slight difference in our ratings with the minus, we probably feel the same way about this. But like, for example, Warren G and like the 5 Footers and his crew, they're at Burger King.
Oh, I love that scene.
And then the Burger King worker roasts Warren G and he hands him an application.
He's like, yeah, you forgot this.
And it's just a funny little moment. It's not, there's nothing that it adds to the documentary in terms of substance.
Right, but the documentary is already insubstantial
but
in terms of having a plot.
Me, I'm just examining 1995 Burger King. The prices, the design of the packaging, the uniforms.
So, you too, huh? Because that's what I was doing.
Wu-Tang Clan in Japan. I mean, I was saying that this could have been the whole movie for me. I got a lot of joy out of it. It was great hearing. There was actually a comment on the YouTube. This movie's on YouTube, guys, by the way. You can search if you want to see it. The show 1995 documentary on YouTube, and you'll find it.
It belongs on YouTube.
Say what?
I said it belongs on YouTube.
Well, yeah, it is YouTube.
It is a glorified YouTube video before basically. The YouTube era.
So, in the comments here, it says...
I think I might have saw the comment. Are you talking about, like, it was great to see them in Japan or something?
It says, Lil People... Office Honcho Boxing says, Lil People know the man shown at 3551, rather, was part of one of the most influential hip-hop groups in the Japanese hip-hop scene called Rhymester. This doc was in production in 94, came out in 95. The same year, their critically acclaimed and historic album called Egotopia came out. 1995 being a very important year in the Japanese hip-hop scene. Nothing but bangers were coming out that year, which did catch the eye of American hip-hop groups such as Souls of Mischief, AG, and producers like DJ Premier, Buck Wild, Pete Rock, and Lord Finesse. If you get noticed by DJ Premier and do a collab, I think the scene in Japan earned its respect from the New York scene when it comes to how they appreciate the art of hip-hop, where the West Coast and the South were still fighting to earn that.
It's kind of wild, you know. That's the kind of, like, you know, insight that you would expect to get from a documentary like this.
Right. I would have liked to know more about that person who was rapping, but it's just something they throw in there. He was just
presented as a guy. I mean, I could tell him, like, he seems to be talented, but I thought he was like a guy on the street that they had run into. That was like a fan. You can see
Ghostface behind him just sitting down watching him rap, and he's like halfway amused, halfway like, where's the hotel?
Right. You know?
So it's just all these random moments, you know? I wrote Biggie talking about his mom and the song Suicidal Thoughts. The 5 Footers. I thought it was interesting how his mom
basically did the interview with him.
Yeah, and she was saying she liked Big Papa, right?
Yeah.
She liked Big Papa, and she lived juicy, she said. We got Snoop Dogg performing. He has an interview, back to Slick Rick in jail, juxtaposed with the warnings that Snoop was giving previously. Dre starts talking about the dog pound. I wrote, God, Corrupt looks so young here.
He does. I noticed that too.
Suge Knight on the dog pound. He is a scary man. Russell Simmons on Dre and Suge Knight. And then I wrote Corrupt when he actually starts rapping really comes alive. He sounds so like sheepish and young in the earlier clips, but when he starts rapping, it's like, oh yeah, that's Corrupt.
Was it Corrupt that was saying like, you know, they think us on the West Coast, like we don't really be rapping like that, but he was like I'll get you off the dome, like we can do this. He said, yeah, I'll serve them off the top. They'll get served. You know, and I was like, ooh, that's hip hop. Is that not hip hop? It's hip hop to me. You know,
we got, you know, Tretch on the differences between the East and West Coast styles. Vinny from Naughty by Nature on the early days when they recorded OPP at that house in Jersey. New drop, by the way, 3338. Yeah, just go to 3338 and it ends at 3352.
Oh man,
this is a new drop for the show.
For if you're listening, you know, to this isolated, we talking about rap rankings. Let me see. These YouTube ads, man, they lost their minds last year.
This YouTube video had so many ads on it. I have to watch 10 ads while I watch this movie.
You know, I see the markers for ads, but oddly, I don't remember watching any ads.
Oh man,
as I was watching. All right, you said 33 what?
From 3338 to 3352.
Oh, okay, I think I wrote this down. Let me see. 3338. Okay, here we go.
Shits. Check it out. I gotta hear myself. I gotta release tension. Come again. I got to mention freestyle, free flow off the dome. Once again, you know. Now,
all right, that's it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about. Okay, no, this isn't the same. Although this is funny. This is. I was thinking about this. Hold on.
The time to form 3 companies, now the whole industry awaits the new recital. I take your favorite idol, I crumple up the title in the face, cause I'm fed up with that same old crap. Like a developer in your crew, that's why your stage so dry. So let the sleeping and the suing, I can't hear myself.
That was great.
Yeah, that was great. He was going, and he's just like, I can't hear myself.
We got the Wu-Tang in Japan with Method Man really kind of being our tour guide. We hear from Ghostface, Raekwon, you know, but
it should have been Wu-Tang. They had the most personality, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, I wrote, you know. Oh no, RZA has a champagne bottle. You have to go back to the Cradle to the Grave review for that story. I wrote, my God, at this tour bus argument.
Oh yeah, listen, that whole part where so Method Man is like getting mad at everybody else. He's like, see, y'all acting fun. Basically, it's like y'all acting funny because the cameras is on, you know. And they're like, what do you mean?
And you got to understand,
and Method Man starts going off.
Wu-Tang fight like brothers. They always have.
Word.
They are they present a unified front, but they've always had like little inter dramas and beefs with each other.
Okay. I can feel it. I know it makes sense because you know what these arguments were reminding me of? I'm like, this is the Skype chat. Like, that's what that reminded me of. I wrote, this is chat stuff.
Right.
You know?
And keep in mind, you have all these guys with different personalities, but they're all together. It's the woo. It's like, you know, that's what makes them so great.
Yeah. You know, and what's great is like, basically what happens is Method Man is going off and he's like, you hear someone off screen chime in and Method Man is like, you don't know what you're talking about. And it pans over and it's You God and they put on the screen, You God. That was very funny to me. And he's like, you know, you was because Meth was like, y'all left me to go do the interview. Y'all stayed at the hotel. Like, he was like, you was talking to some girl on the phone in the corner and You God was like, that wasn't what was happening. I was doing this. And it was hilarious. It was heated, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was very funny. And Method Man basically just said like, yo, I'm the guy. Like, fuck you.
I'm the guy. Like,
why don't you step up and be entertaining, and then you can be the guy.
Exactly. You know, there's so many moments in that segment. Him getting like, it looked like,
I'm telling you, this could have been its own movie. They could have taken this out of the show and just made a Wu-Tang in Japan in 1995. It like arguably their creative peak. You know, like that would have just been
Japan.
That would have been a classic film. We get Run DMC's origins. We find out Kid Creole created Yes Yes Y'all, which every rapper basically went on to say. So shout out to Kid Creole.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, you know, you're talking like it's sort of like segmented. It's like episodic. It's like these different groups. I call that the old head haters table.
Oh yeah, okay.
And it's great. I love that table. It's a great table.
They were just talking. You know, they were talking about that
the same way we talk now.
That table we come back to. We find out why the movie's called The Show. That's where we get that monologue where we find out what the show is referring to. We get Dr. Dre on Making the Chronic. We get that Burger King stuff I was telling you about. We get LL Cool J talking about sending a tape to Rick Rubin, getting introduced to Russell Simmons. You know,
basically forming Def Jam.
Yeah,
so they could put that single out.
Putting out I Need a Beat. I wrote LMAO at 103.46 or 113.46. Can we pull that up?
Let me see. 113.46.
Maybe 103 or 114. I can't tell. Because the timestamp's looking a little crazy.
Oh, did they hear me say that?
Oh, is it the Zim Zam thing?
103.46, I think. Or 113.46. One of those two.
So, but you know the second is 40-something.
46. 103 or 113. That doesn't sound like it is.
Okay, yeah, this is just a song. So that's 103. So 103. What, 113?
Yeah, so 113. Yeah, it's 113.46 to 114.02 then.
Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah, this is the haters table. So
I wrote LMAO.
And keep in mind, that's an endearing term I use.
It's a great table.
Look, Houdini's there, Curtis Blow, Melly Mel, you know. They're all like, we think of them as old heads now. They were already old heads in 95, which is crazy.
Method Man's tour bus argument, the new drop that I sent you, the Burger King shit, and this were my funniest moments.
1,000 people, 100 people. The difference between what we did and what they doing now, it was a form of entertainment. When you came into concert and you see, like, if you see a Run DMC show, or you see a Houdini show, or you see a Curtis Blow show, you seeing a show. You see a Grandmaster Flash show, you seeing a show. You see these boys right now, you see just a brother out on stage.
Bro, listen, we're still having these arguments today. When Snoop Dogg was emulating the flows, he was talking about Aries Spears, bro.
Yep.
You know, this will always persist. Look, let me pull it up, man. Okay, they talking about in '95 how rappers, they don't put on a show, they ain't got no choreographed moves. They not
95
standing around.
Keep in mind who they're talking about here. They're talking about Biggie, Tupac. All right, like They're talking about fucking Snoop. All the people we're seeing in this movie, they're basically saying, "Nah, these guys don't do shows. This is not a show. You call this a show?"
And here we are now, like in the 2020s, and we're hearing Ari Spears talk about the rapper sounding like this. You know? I mean, you know, I'm not here to tell you where you should fall.
That drop is going to so come in handy on some of these albums we'll be doing.
I'm not here to tell you where to fall in that argument. I'm just telling you that the argument has been going on forever. It's not new. Every generation feels that their generation was the peak, was the golden age, and the stuff after it just isn't
watered down.
The same. You know,
we got Andre Harrell, rest in peace. He was talking about his rap group,
for sure.
Which
was funny. They were and he looks like sophisticated brother number 4 in like any movie, and like he looked like that on the album cover too. I want to hear this album.
Oh, the Jekyll and Hyde album.
This was like some real Braxton from the Jamie Foxx show.
Well, he was talking about like the difference in approach, you know, from then to now and everything.
Yeah,
and
he was like when they were rapping.
He dropped some serious gems, honestly, in this movie. Like in terms of like substance, Andre Harrell back to back with Dr. Dre's "It's Entertainment." You go out and shoot someone, you stupid. Like between those back to back were two of the better like gems dropped in this film. Yeah. We got Biggie cursing out the dude in the crowd and throwing money at the dude, throwing money at the heckler.
He's like, y'all ain't live enough. And he throws money into the crowd. He almost incited a riot.
You know? Puffy, he's talking about, you know, being a young black entrepreneur. Big Papa performance. I said Puffy and Biggie were dressed to the nines here. And then, you know, it ends on Slick Rick. I feel like this movie could have waited until he got out. And we got like an ending with him getting out of jail, and it's like we get something like that feels like there's some hope going forward, but it just ends on Slick Rick.
Honestly, you know what probably happened, bro? Like Russell Simmons says at the beginning, like, he doesn't even want to visit him. Like he's like, I don't like going to. I'm rich.
But
and
I feel like that's exactly what I was saying That's exactly what I was saying though earlier in the review when I was saying, man, I feel like there's so much more to dig into between their relationship with each other at this point. Whatever like issues that they may have with one another, like there's a lot, but like, you know, it feels
no, I think what happened is he didn't want to do it. Maybe that was the original intention, and he's like, I'm not going back to that jail. And like, just like, let's just throw together a documentary, just put a bunch of footage together,
you know. And it's easy to shit on Russell Simmons now because of like everything that's come out about him. In terms
he's Mr. Me Too.
You know,
like,
in terms of sexual
and it's very
abuse
obvious watching this documentary and his scenes that he did it. Like, he basically tells on himself. Well, yeah, I'm 37. I want to travel around the world and chase famous models.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. And I mean, listen, he doesn't do himself any favors in this movie to me, coming off like a good guy. He just doesn't. Like, he comes off like
he's
a
terrible dude in this.
Literally from the moment where like you're first introduced to him in the opening scene, where he's like, man, fuck that. I don't want to go to fucking Rikers and visit this dude. Like, it's just like, oh, man, like, you know, like, and I know, like, they're, you know, if you've ever had anyone that you know in jail, like, that's their only real lifeline to, like, the outside world.
I mean, like, people. Yeah, it's sad, but you got to hold your people down. You got to visit, you know? Oh, speaking of which, I wanted to tell you, you said conjugal earlier, and I wasn't sure, so I looked it up. Because I was like, isn't that only like for people in relationships? Like, isn't that the term they use for that? And yeah, it's related to marriage or the relationship of married
understood.
Couple.
Okay,
so to be clear, Russell Simmons wasn't in there because like Slick Rick was his partner or anything. He was just.
Well, we don't know. And listen, not that there's anything wrong with that, you know.
Of course not. But yeah, we don't know. They were Russell was certainly talking about him like an estranged, you know, partner or something. Right.
Slick Rick was just like, man, I'm doing all right. It just kind of sucks in here. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, basically, like, Slick Rick was cool.
He didn't seem like he had a problem, but Russell...
Well, Russell was saying, he's like, yo, should we cut this out? And he's like, no, it's real. Hip-hop is real.
You know what I thought of, by the way, during this movie? Because everyone's kind of giving their take on what hip-hop is.
What's that?
Number one, if we were going to do that, I feel like we could have gotten a little more of a history lesson here. Like, I don't think the words Cool Herc are even uttered in this film.
Well, we do, like, when I was saying earlier, it seems like we might, you know, the very opening sequence, we might get like a walkthrough of hip hop. We get those moments. It's just not all interconnected. It's like, you know, they talk about like, forgot who mentioned it. I think it was at the haters table. It was like real hip hop was us people who were doing it before we were ever selling records. We were just, it was a thing we did in the park. Like, we weren't making money off of it. Nobody thought about this as a lucrative career path or a career path at all, you know? Like, and we knew how to perform, how to rock a show, because that's what we were doing at these parks and at these events. You know, and these rappers now, all they've ever known is this as a career. Maybe they don't have that experience of just being in parks, rocking a mic, you know, MCing, you know? So we get historical context, but we also get all this other stuff too, which makes it not really work as a documentary. You know, it's what I keep saying. As a documentary, it doesn't know what it wants to be.
I don't think it works as a documentary. However, if you're a big hip hop fan,
slices of hip hop,
I wouldn't recommend this to someone who is interested in film and wants to learn about hip hop, because this isn't really a guided tour. You're almost like the more you enjoy this will be essentially based on how much you enjoy hip hop already and how much you know about it, because the more of these artists you're familiar with, you know, this doesn't even really give you that good of an overview of the artists who you're dealing with. Like, when Wu-Tang are on screen, we don't hear the RZA saying, okay, so Wu-Tang was like my idea to make this group, and we're going to have these like kung fu samples, and I'm going to juxtapose it with these like really like, you know, like these really kind of like minor key beats. You don't get any of that. It's just like you're thrown into it and you're expected to know who these people are if you're seeing this movie.
Exactly. Right.
I do. So it works enough.
If you're a hip hop fan, this is a treat. But if you are going into this hoping to get some content, I mean, you'll get, like I said, you'll get context about hip hop. You get some pretty good commentary and, you know, insight, but it doesn't work as a full body. You know, it's just. And what's interesting, you said like you wouldn't show this to like, you know, a filmmaker or somebody trying to put together a documentary film. So this was directed by Brian Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked him up. He's got some classics, bro.
Oh, does he? What does he got?
Good Burger. 97, he directed Good Burger, Ready to Rumble in 2000.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean,
yeah.
He's done hip hop. He's done 90s Nickelodeon.
Listen,
he's
and
done
shout
wrestling.
out to my people, the blacks. This is a cult classic. Hardball, Keanu Reeves.
Listen, that's a sad movie.
It's very sad. Now, he's also done, it seems like after 2004, he started doing like, he did the Shaggy Dog, Norbit, Meet Dave.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and 1,000. So it looks like he was doing a lot of stuff with Eddie Murphy.
He became friends with Eddie Murphy, and he was like, all right, fuck this. Like, I'm just going to be friends with this guy, whatever he wants to do.
and I guess responsible for some of Eddie Murphy's critically panned films.
Well, you can't, you know what they say. You can't win them all.
I'm looking at this Brian Robbins. It looks like a good guy. Oh, as of 2018, he's the president of Nickelodeon. It's 57. He's from Brooklyn.
President Robbins.
Oh, he produced all that? Listen, I rock with this guy. This isn't his fault. It's Russell Simmons' fault that the show is not a coherent documentary.
You know what? Russell Simmons probably saw
of hip-hop.
He probably saw an early cut that made sense with like all that Slick Rick stuff that we were talking about. He's like, don't put this shit out. I'm not comfortable. I don't want people thinking about me as a guy who sits in jail. Yeah. Talks to people in jail. I don't want to be thought of that way. And Ryan was like,
I'm trying to get with
models. He was like, that's not jiggy. All right. Like, I'm flying around trying to get models. I don't want to be sitting in a jail. All right. Talking to this man. He ain't even got his jewelry on.
You know, it's just,
I'm not blaming Russell Simmons was like, you know what? This is what I want you to do. Take that, cut that. He's like, what are you doing? And Russell Simmons got in the editing booth and he just started cutting shit and flipping it around. He thought he was Christopher Nolan. I'm going to mix it all up. It's going to be momentum.
Real Jay-Z energy.
Oh god.
You know.
But yeah, as
to...
a documentary film, I mean, there's better hip hop documentary films. There's better documentaries in general. It doesn't really work as a documentary.
But it works if you're a hip hop fan and you just want to
I would say
see some fun footage.
If you're like the kind of hip hop fan that's listening to Rap Rankings,
yeah, basically,
you'll get something out of it. If you care about rap on more than a surface level, like you don't just listen to it, you go and you want to hear all the albums that are considered classics, and you revere the rap canon and whatnot. Like this is definitely up your alley. I can't recommend it to fans of documentary filmmaking.
This is for fans of hip hop, not documentaries, for sure. And I mean, that's really all that needs to be said. I mean, the rest of my notes are just to continue a segment I've been doing in this Moulz and Mel at the movies. It's just random stuff that made me laugh. I mean, seeing with Warren G and like his manager, I guess, and like his manager lets him know that I guess the two women he's touring with like want a hairdresser, and he's like, I ain't paying for the shit. And he's like, come on, Warren, every group need a hairdresser, and
yeah,
like eventually they get it sorted out.
That's the 5 Footers. That was a all girl group that were signed to Warren G, I believe.
Yeah, he was not having the hairdresser thing. Method Man looking genuinely upset over ordering steak, and it was just like he was like, look at this, just 4 pieces, and like he like stared into the camera like forlornly. He was hurt.
You know what that reminded me of?
What's that?
Tyler, the creator, overseas like upset at the food in Europe, like he just wants McDonald's or whatever. he used to tweet about getting angry over like, you know, being in France and like not having the food that he wants.
Oh man, I've heard a lot about that overseas food. I think the key is you got to commit if you're overseas to eating what they eat. Because if you try to get what you get normally
trash
from it's going to be trash.
Yeah,
you know,
agreed. You have to get over whatever.
When in Rome, do as the Romans do, you know?
I mean, I honestly, like, I don't want to really get into it, but I feel like not eating food is xenophobic. Like, if I'm in a different country...
I follow.
And I'm trying to eat, like, white people food in that country...
It's ridiculous. Like, I mean, why are you even there?
Right. Like, if I'm in Japan, I'm eating Japanese food, sushi or sashimi or whatever they got.
I want to try whatever they eat.
Because it's going to be the best of that shit available, and I've probably never even tried it the way it's meant to be prepared. Whereas, you know, if I'm in Italy, I want real Italian food. I'm not going to go looking for sushi.
You know, I'm not going to Pizza Hut.
Right. I'm not looking for McDonald's either. I'm in fucking Italy. I want to eat what they are eating.
Exactly. Whatever they really eat, that's what I want. If I'm going to experience, you know, other cultures and countries, why am I trying to eat this? You know, so yeah. But I mean,
I do think the Japanese steakhouse is a thing. To be fair, you know, they got the wagyu.
Wagyu. Listen, have I had that, or did I just watch somebody eat it? And
no one who lives in America has had that.
Had the real stuff,
because it will go bad by the time it gets here compared to the standards of how. Like, I mean, listen, you talk to real sushi chefs, they say if you get sushi delivered and you don't go to the restaurant and get it from the sushi bar itself, they'll say even sometimes eating sushi that goes from the bar to the table, you're tainting the sushi. So imagine, like, I mean, the real sushi chefs will say you sit at the bar and you eat from the bar, like, as we hand it to you.
Right.
And that's the real way to get, like, that's just what they say. I mean, fuck, man. You like ordering sushi. Don't let me stop.
I ate today. I wanted to get some daggone Hokkaido. It's this place in town before we recorded, but I ain't had no time, and I ain't want to pay no delivery fees. And now you tell me I shouldn't have get it. I know better than to get sushi delivered anyway, but I ain't want to leave the house. But man,
So you know that shit at the grocery store too, which is already pre-prepared.
I know about grocery store sushi. Every time I get it, I know I'm disrespecting myself. But sometimes you want that
really
trash.
More so disrespecting the art form of the sushi.
Well, true, that too. I'm disrespecting myself, and I'm disrespecting the art of sushi. You know,
I love sushi.
It's passable.
I just my issue with it is that I don't find it to be that filling. So I have to spend
You got to spend like $30-$40
a person to really fill yourself up on it. So, I mean, pardon me while I burn my stimmy.
All right, Brandon Boyd. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's rich people food. It feels like, but I like pretending I'm rich sometimes and splurging on the sushi. You got to do it from time to time. You know, the government doesn't want us to do that. They want us to be poor. They don't want us to ever experience anything nice. You know, but this isn't government rankings or sushi rankings or rap rankings. It's Moulz and Mel at the movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
oh yeah, during the Wu-Tang segment. Like this woman walks up and she's like really giddy and like walks away. And I don't know which member it was, but they pan over to him. He's like, she ain't got no drawers on, son. None. And like I ran it back because I'm like, what? And it's like how would he know that? But you hear somebody in the bed like he can tell. Like, all right, I guess. Like, you know.
Oh, so
what else?
One more thing. The movie ends. The credits are, you know, Biggie performing the "Me and My Bitch" live that we'll discuss in the review, and that's the only instance in this film where I think something from the soundtrack is actually played.
True. Other than, you know, the sound bites.
Right, the sound bites
from the film and put on the film
themselves.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd, honestly. Like, the soundtrack is basically unheard in this film.
Well, you know, this wouldn't be the first time this season that's happened.
No, but it's just a little, because, you know, that's what this film is, you know? Music.
Well, you know, they're trying to sell people two things. They want you to go out and spend money on the film and then the soundtrack, so they might not want to give you what you're going to get in the soundtrack in the film, because you'd be like, I already heard it.
It's true.
You know? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because I guess, you know, they're performing more well-known songs. So, if they did it like that, we probably wouldn't even be reviewing the soundtrack.
No, season 4 wouldn't exist. You know, I'm hearing some people may like that season 4 wouldn't exist. Well, listen, you know, you can feel how you like to feel.
The ratings for season 4 are not as good as season 3, but they're better than seasons 1 and 2. What does that say about society these days? You know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I think we took the bullet. All right, we did something that was perhaps it's Cap City around here, and no one really likes hip hop soundtracks. It's all been a bunch of false nostalgia. But you know what? We got to do these because it's our mission.
It's our mission. It's our
we got to do them all.
It's our creed, I think. Maybe that word applies. I don't know. But this is what we do. You know, hip hop is before people made records. Rap is, you know, before people made money off podcasts.
Do we have anything else to say about this film, or have we covered it?
A few things. Curtis Blow looked like he could be Kanye daddy. Africa Bambaataa came on the screen, and I wrote, "Oh no, not Africa."
We have a very long, troubled history with Africa Bambaataa that we will probably not get into until season 17.
Yeah, we as Moulz and Mel, and also as hip hop, you know, as members of hip hop. Runs talk about 20,000 people took their sneakers off when they did My Adidas, and I'm like, it probably smelled wicked in there. Warren G, they were talking about his sort of origin, like he was like, you know, Dr. Dre, you know, was like, yeah, they were just noodling around in the studio learning the beat machine, and I wasn't really paying him attention. And like a year later, he's like gone platinum, and he's like, I wish I would have been down there helping him more. And I was like, wow, Warren G was at Jacob's house making bangers. But shit. that's a deep cut if you listen to Rap Rankings. The white dude showed up to talk to Warren G in the parking lot. I thought that was funny. Nev Love at Burger King popped me crazy. I loved it. She's like, oh man, and a Whopper with cheese.
When she was running through her order, like,
oh, I loved it. I love that. She was like a big apple pie. These are like onion rings, fries, and something. They spent, I made a note, $179.29 at Burger King. Like I love like Warren G. Like you got to keep your bus clean, can't have no dirty bus. Like he's vacuuming the bus.
They were talking about like like man, we eat Burger King every day. I was like, no.
Yeah, because you too. Because full disclosure, I just had Burger King the other night. It's
Are they
oh
back?
my god, what it's fallen on such hard time.
Well,
we know this. We've
well,
talked
they're not
about it
back.
on the show, I'm
They're not
sure.
back.
We don't got time to talk about how Burger King has fallen from grace. But that 95 Burger King, oh, it looked great.
Oh man, I was
Oh
craving it.
man, if I could get me some 95 Burger King right now. But the old haters table was great. Russell not being able to stop himself from calling women bitches, even when he made note of the fact that he was calling it, he went right back to doing it. He's like, it's tall bitches, like he's like, oh, I don't mean bitches, like, I mean like bitch, and then he's like, and then he goes back to calling them. It's ridiculous. He calls them bitches, hoes, all sorts of things. Puff in his bowler hat was hilarious. I mean, it's just there's a lot of just like, look, it's a film to just like be delighted and amused by random things.
I mean, in terms of our ratings so far this season, it's right in the middle. It's not rated as highly as Training Day, Cradle to the Grave, or 8 Mile, but it ranks higher than Judgment Night, Mac and Devin Go to High School, and Streets is Watching.
Yeah, exactly. I really,
I feel like that sounds about right to me.
It does. Sounds about right. I mean, God, I didn't feel as miserable as I did watching Judgment Night. I mean, Judgment Night is almost more shameful because there is a coherent narrative and through line and plot, and it just moves through it at such a glacial pace. It's like infuriating at a point. You're just bored out of your skull. This one, I'm not bored. I'm just not fully engaged because it's just I'm being served random clips for an hour and a half. Yeah.
And that's another thing. It's an hour and a half, so it's like not that bad. It's not like you're
that long.
Sitting there for 2 hours being served.
It's a regular
clips.
movie, Only other thing I guess I would say is I noticed when they're focused on the West Coast artists, there's almost like a little narrative being presented in the documentary where it almost seems like they're being dissed. Like they're going back and forth between the West Coast artists and like the East Coast artists. And I'm like, why did the West Coast artists even agree to be in this? It feels like they're getting dissed low key.
Well, it feels like the way that they try to frame it is like the West Coast are very like concerned about how they're perceived. Whereas the East Coast doesn't really bother them at all. Like they're not even on their radar. Like it's a completely different approach. But they make them.
It seems like the East Coast was like they're like cartoonish and like they don't really live like that.
Right.
And the West was like, no, we really do this, but at the same time, it's entertainment. So like, it was interesting. I mean, it's
the 95.
Beef was starting,
so
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's 95. So we're really getting. A taste of the East Coast, West Coast stuff here.
Yeah, it's an underlying sort of.
And that's the thing, but like literally something like as critical to hip hop's, narrative, if you will, as that, down to like just looking at a 1995 Burger King. There's a lot of interesting time capsules in this film that I think is at least worth like giving it a skim at the very least. So
that's worth the price of entry. If you're a big, if you're a nostalgia person, if you just want to see it's slice of life in 95, check it out.
Very slice of life. I mean, to the point where I do not recommend this to film people. Again, I'd say hip hop heads should check it out, but that's about it.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
All right. Well, we have a little exit music here, and I'll let them know what we're doing next week.
Oh, well, before I hit the exit, pull up the exit music.
Mm-hmm.
Folks who have that argument about taking the proverbial dinner with Jay-Z, I'll just have you know, according to this documentary, Biggie would have been in favor of it. The concept, at least. Because when he was talking about Russell Simmons, he's like, I just want to sit and talk to him. So, like, hey, maybe the dinner with Jay-Z isn't so, like, such a fake hustler millennial thing after all.
If you're gonna have dinner with Jay-Z, you better rap as good as Biggie.
Yeah, that's fair. And with that said, you've heard it from Moulz, you've heard it from Mel. The show, it's good. Not a good documentary, but a good piece of hip hop history. So, you want me to hit this music?
Hit it. Next week on Moulz and Mel at the Movies, the show is over, and now it is time to Trespass, the 1992 film directed by Walter Hill, written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, and starring Ice-T, Ice Cube, William Sadler, and somebody else who I can't remember at the moment. Is Trespass a classic, considering it's created by some of the same people who created HBO's Tales from the Crypt? We'll find out next week on Moulz and Mel at the Movies.
Hey, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all of the other episodes, check the link in the description, stop by raprankings.com, or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us grow the channel and continue our journey as hip-hop's first and premier extreme podcast.